A fresh round of strikes from the United States. This is new video just coming in to the Situation Room from the area of the coastal Iran. The U.S. Military Central Command saying it has struck 90 Iranian targets to keep the Strait of Hormuz open to shipping. The targets run the gamut, among them air defense systems, coastal surveillance assets, missile and drone storage sites, naval capabilities, and military infrastructure along Iran's coastline. And Iran immediately responded by targeting U.S. military bases in Kuwait and Bahrain for the second night in a row. Iran's army says it had targeted a U.S. military site in Qatar, the first time Tehran has acknowledged targeting that Gulf Arab nation. And Jordan now says it successfully intercepted 8 Iranian missiles earlier this morning. Right now, I want to go live to CNN's Elena Treen over at the White House. Elena, what is the president saying now about this new escalation with Iran?
Yeah, look, we saw a second round of strikes yesterday ordered by the president himself, Wolf. I just want to give you a little sense of the scope of these attacks over recent days. The U.S. forces have struck more than 170 Iranian military targets in these 2 rounds of strikes. They say that they were targeted air defense systems, drone and missile storage sites, military speedboats, and logistics infrastructure, all of them around the Strait of Hormuz. So that just gives you a sense of how broad these strikes are, even as they're really trying to target the strait. Now, as for what the president is saying, I think it's very unclear what the state of this ceasefire and that memorandum of understanding that the president signed just a couple weeks ago around the G7 summit, what the fate of that is and what the state of that is at this point. Now, we did hear the president speaking with reporters yesterday. He made a point to argue that if Iran is going to attack ships in the strait, try to attack the U.S., that the U.S. will hit back 20 times harder, while also leaving open the idea that perhaps negotiating could still be on the table. Listen.
We just hit them very hard, and I'd say we hit them 20 to 1. Every time they hit us, we're going to hit them 20.
Are we returning to a full-scale military conflict, sir?
I don't know. I don't know. We'd win it very quickly. It's another way of doing it. We have many ways we can win, but we've already won militarily. They have very little. They have very little left, and they want to make a deal so badly. They called a little while ago. They want to make a deal so badly. I just don't know if they're worthy of making a deal. I don't know that they're going to honor the deal. That's the problem.
So you've heard the president saying there, they want to make a deal so badly, something he said often. Just to give you a look behind the curtain, though, Wolf, in the conversations I've been having with officials here in Washington, they tell me that, one, the president has just been so frustrated, one, with the pace of negotiations and specifically this idea that Iran is slow walking nuclear talks, but also he wants the strait back open. I'd remind you that was a key part of that text of the MOU, something that they haven't seen. So that's contributing to, I think, a lot of the lack of patience you're seeing from the president and the frustration in recent days.
Yeah, extremely tense moment right now. Elena Treen, thank you very, very much. State media in Iran is now reporting new U.S. strikes on various Iranian coastal cities. This is new video from Bushehr province in Iran. And Jordanian officials now say their air defenses intercepted 8 missiles launched from Iran. That according to state media as well. Let's go live right now to CNN's Fred Pleitgen. He's on the ground for us in Tehran. We should note CNN operates in Iran only with the permission of the government there, but maintains full editorial control of its reports. Fred, update our viewers. What are you learning now?
Hi there, Wolf. Well, it certainly seems as though the situation between the United States and Iran is continuing to heat up. You mentioned some of those strikes that the Iranians were talking about in the Bushehr province. Now, just to get our viewers up to date, Bushehr is in the northern part of the Persian Gulf, so not actually near the Strait of Hormuz. And the Iranians are saying that the perimeter of a nuclear reactor, a nuclear power plant there, appears to have taken some damage. However, there are also some military installations in that area as well. So it's unclear what exactly the target of that was, but that's certainly something that happened over the course of today. It was not part of those overnight strikes that we saw by the U.S. On areas in Iran, specifically in the Persian Gulf, in those overnight hours that then led to that Iranian retaliation. The Iranians, Wolf, now also acknowledging that they fired 10 ballistic missiles, one of the main U.S. air bases in Jordan. It's unclear what exactly the damage of that was, but it certainly seems to show that the Iranians now also using longer distance and heavier munitions to try and target U.S. assets, not just in the Gulf region, but in the wider Middle Eastern regions. That could also be an indication that maybe things are escalating. One of the things that's actually causing a lot of anger here, Wolf, in Iran, is that the Iranians are saying that 2 railway bridges were targeted by the United States overnight. And that's very important in the context of this day, because as we know, Wolf, today is the day that Iran's slain supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, gets laid to rest in Mashhad, which is the holiest city here for Shia Islam in Iran. And those railway bridges are actually on the main rail line from Tehran to Mashhad. And the Iranians are saying that a lot of people who wanted to get to that ceremony didn't manage to do that. Nevertheless, video that we're seeing from Mashhad shows thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people on the streets. They're lining the streets in that procession of mourning that then again will see the slain supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei get laid to rest in the Mashhad in his hometown. That the culmination point of an almost weeks-long, really marathon of funeral ceremonies. Wolf.
All right, Fred Pleitgen on the scene for us in Tehran.
Our own CNN Politics senior reporter, good friend of the show, Stephen Collinson. Stephen, let me start with you. You wrote that President Trump is now in a predicament of his own making, you say, after he launched a war that never promised a definitive exit and crafted an MOU that failed to address the reasons for the conflict. This is a good piece and well worth a read, and I'm pushing our viewers to do that. That is at CNN.com. How do you believe he got here?
I think to begin with, there was hubris because the White House was fresh off the operation in Venezuela that extracted President Maduro. I think there was a feeling that the United States military was so superior that it could affect a win in Iran within a few days. Around the president, I don't think there's a great deal of expertise on the Middle East, not much knowledge about Iran's history. And there were false expectations of just how much damage and therefore political change that an air war could create, even though you might argue there's been plenty of warnings of that over the last 25 years of American history in places like Iraq and Afghanistan. As it comes to the peace talks, I think it's again a case of a lack of expertise, not reading the Iranian political situation very carefully, perhaps buying into at least the start the Israeli vision of this. But it always seemed to me that the Israelis were prepared for a much longer war, even perpetual conflict against Iran, and the US side didn't really appreciate that. And as Renee was saying, there's this approach in all of the administration's negotiations that everything is really a real estate deal. And we saw this in Ukraine as well as in the Middle East. Some actors simply do not behave as though the be-all and end-all is a monetary win at the end of this. And even though Iran got huge benefits from the Memorandum of Understanding, it is also driven by nationalism, by politics, by ideology, by sovereignty, just like the parties in the Ukraine war were driven, and the White House just doesn't seem to understand that.